For the military, it has signified a heightened alert on the Golan Heights and, in fact, across the northern border. There were reports that Israel threatened to shoot down Iranian jets, two private Iranian jets that it said were carrying weaponry to still try and sustain Assad. And those planes turned around. Israel has now stationed tanks at the border. And the chief of the Israeli army, the chief of staff of the army, made a statement up by the border just a few hours ago in which he said that as long as the new rebel forces, quote, did not turn towards Israel, that Israel had no involvement in the whole matter, but that if there would be any acts of violence or any invasive intention aimed at Israel, that Israel was prepared with a very significant military response. It's worth noting that the Israeli army was involved yesterday in an incident in which these rebel forces, I'm not sure which ones they actually are, that approached Quneitra, attacked a UN base. And the Israeli army was called by them to intervene and did a few kilometers inside Syrian territory. The matter was taken care of and the Israeli forces then retreated. But there's absolutely heightened awareness and some fear about a kind of chaos on the border with the retreat of the Russians and the Iranian generals who've been basically running that part of Syria for more than a decade now.
And do we know at all how the government is responding to all this?
Yes, the government is also responding with some alarm. There were two meetings yesterday of the Netanyahu's Prime Minister Netanyahu's Security Cabinet related just to the Syria question. Israel has a certain concern of what is being referred to here as the Yugoslavization of Syria. In other words, that Syria as a unified state could fall apart with there being, for example, Kurdistan up north and possibly an Afghan-style Islamist regime further south, closer to Israel. There could be internal clashes, and some of the possible spillover is worrying Israel. The other thing, obviously, is just strategically with the U.S. administration about to change, Israel now has to recalibrate its attitudes towards the Russians and possibly the Iranians.
Now, in terms of whether this is a victory or not for the Israeli government, how are they going to be seeing this?
Right, that's a really good question because Israel has not, to my knowledge, had any involvement. There were a lot of rumors, but Israel apparently has not had any involvement in this uprising at all. And yet, from a certain point of view, this is one of the most significant victories for Israel in decades, because what we're seeing is the complete collapse of what Prime Minister Netanyahu called this axis of evil, in which Iran, attempting to extend its influence throughout the region, funded Hezbollah in Lebanon, subsequently in Syria. Iran sent significant forces. They had entire bases in Syria to prop up Assad. They sustained also Hamas that attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023 from the south. And what you see is the collapse of these organizations to a great extent by Israel's hand during the course of this war. But now the other movement, the collapse of Iran's ambitions to be the definitive force in this part of the Middle East, appears to have suffered a huge blow. And it's hard not to see, at least in the short, immediate term, that this isn't a kind of inadvertent victory for Israel.